It's a crime. It's criminal what they're doing.
Look, this was always going to go one of two ways. Either no one was going to drive into New York City,
Christmas trees flying around. No traffic though.
or people would just keep doing what they have always done and the city would make a ton of money. Of course, I'm talking about the new New York City Congestion Relief Zone, which is an area in New York that is adding tolls just for driving into the city. Now, I wanted to see what the impact of the new Congestion Relief Zone in New York City is going to be, so I found a bunch of data that will help us find the answer. But first, what exactly is the congestion zone? Congestion pricing isn't a new idea. Cities like London, Stockholm, and Singapore have already implemented similar programs to address urban traffic and environmental challenges. Let's start with one of the most well-known examples, the London congestion charge. In 2003, London introduced its congestion charge targeting the heart of the city's central business district, about 21 square kilometers. Drivers entering the zone during peak hours were initially charged £5, a fee that has since increased to £15 per day. While the results, they were substantial. Traffic volume in the zone decreased by 15% and vehicle delays dropped by 30%. Public transportation became a more attractive option as bus delays were reduced by 60%, with many commuters switching from cars to trains and buses. Environmental impacts were also notable. Nitrogen oxides decreased by 12% and carbon dioxide emissions dropped by 15%. These changes demonstrate how congestion pricing can reshape urban transportation and improve air quality. The idea of congestion pricing in New York City has been debated for decades, and finally in 2019, it became a reality when the program was signed into law as part of the state budget. So why was it introduced? In 2022, Manhattan drivers faced an average of 117 hours of annual delays due to congestion. Meanwhile, transportation accounted for 28% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions, with vehicle exhaust contributing significantly to poor air quality. These issues made congestion pricing a critical solution. The New York City program focuses on Manhattan below 60th Street, where vehicles entering during peak hours will pay a toll of $9 for passenger cars and $14.40 for trucks. The rates go down during the night, and you do get a discount if you paid a toll on a bridge or tunnel coming into the cities. And rideshares like Lyft and Uber are not exempt. They will have a toll of $1.50 and a 75-cent fee for your yellow cabs. Now, the program itself has three main stated goals. First, they want to reduce traffic congestion by discouraging unnecessary car trips into Manhattan. The plan aims to cut traffic volumes by 15 to 20%. The second is improving air quality. Lowering the number of vehicles will reduce harmful emissions, contributing to better health outcomes for residents. And finally, they want to fund public transportation. The revenue generated, estimated at about $1 billion annually, will fund critical upgrades to the MTA's subway, bus, and commuter rail systems. This investment will make public transit more reliable and accessible, encouraging even more people to leave their cars at home. New York City's congestion pricing plan is ambitious, but it's not without precedent. The question is, can New York City, a city with unique challenges and complexities, replicate the successes of other cities? Well, this is what I wanted to figure out. So let's jump into the data and see what that tells us about what may or may not happen with the congestion pricing. So to actually figure out what was going on or what might happen with the congestion pricing, I had to go and find some data. So these were the data sets that I actually came across. So the most helpful data set is actually a data set which contains the annual average daily traffic, or the number of cars that go on each road. This data is from 2019, but it does give us a helpful estimate on how many cars drive on a specific road at any given day. And then finally, what I think is going to tell us the best information is actually this data set here. Unfortunately, it hasn't been updated since congestion pricing went into effect. This data set actually tells us the number of vehicles going through the different toll points that the MTA controls. This is basically some of the bridges and tunnels that are in New York. It doesn't include the tunnels coming in from New Jersey, but it gives us a good idea, or will give us a good idea, how many cars are actually going in through these points. And maybe it even gives an indication of how much traffic is going up or down after congestion pricing went into effect. So to do all of this, I pulled all this data into Wherebots. I just dumped it into a cloud storage bucket and started analyzing the data. If you want to check this out, I have the links to all the data in the description here, and then you can actually check out these notebooks here. So after a little bit of data prep, I pushed all of these data sets into a few different maps so we can actually see what's going on. It was pretty easy to do that once I had my data prepped, and I pushed these into some different maps in Felt, which is a great platform for visualizing and analyzing geospatial data. Now, after analyzing the data, figuring out which streets are the ones that are actually going into the congestion zone, using Wherebots, I could push that data up to Felt here and then actually see exactly how many cars may or may not be going into the congestion zone. So after looking at the main entrances, which are basically the tunnels here on the west side, the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, the bridges here in South Manhattan, the Queens Midtown Tunnel and the Queensboro Bridge, and then finally all of the southbound roads coming into street in the north end of the city here. You add all of those up and it looks about 415,000 vehicles will be coming into that zone every day, give or take. And what's cool is that it actually matched up pretty close to what the New York Times was. They actually went out and surveyed for an hour how many cars were moving into the zone. And if you look at their estimates here, they actually ended up at about 347,000. So there may be a little bit more traffic coming in when it's all said and done, but pretty close to what we actually estimated here in the maps. So this seems like a pretty good estimate of what might actually be taking place. Now, this is a data set I'm going to be watching as the congestion pricing goes into effect, which is average speeds around these different areas. So basically, these are the average across all the different entries in the data set. It's 91 million rows and it's updated on a very regular basis. So I can actually go in here and see the date, and it's the most recent updated date here. And you can see that there's even data coming in on January 10th, which is just about a day ago. And you can see here the speed and travel time. So I'm going to kind of do a before and after, hopefully get a sense of like how these different roads are. But I think the best data set is going to be this one, and it hasn't been updated since congestion pricing went into effect. The data that's most recent is of the day before it went into effect. But this will actually tell us the number of cars that are passing through the different toll points that the MTA controls. Now, the three that matter the most are going to be the Hugh L. Carey or the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel here, which will immediately come into congestion zone, the Queens Midtown Tunnel, and then maybe to see in the RFK Tunnel here if people are trying to avoid it by going outside of this. But if we see a major increase or decrease or no change between these 2 points here, that's going to tell me something about cars going or not going in, but we're just going to have to wait for the data. And it turns out the MTA hasn't really gotten much data after that anyway. So how much money is this whole thing going to make? So assuming that our count of 415,000 vehicles coming into the congestion zone is accurate about every single day, and we just use the average of $9 for every single trip, that comes out to $3.7 million every single day that's going to collected from the congestion zone pricing. When you average that out for every hour that the congestion zone is active, that's about $233,000 every single hour. And over the course of an entire year, that means about $1.3 billion of revenue for the MTA every single year. So when you see what the data actually tells us, the numbers aren't that far off. And assuming that the car counts don't drop that much, it'll pretty much be on par with what they think, about $1 billion a year and about $200,000 every single hour being collected from congestion pricing in New York City. Now, we still need to get some data back after the congestion pricing went into effect, and hopefully we'll get some more information soon. But in the meantime, I think it's fair to say that most people will still be driving into that zone and in turn paying the toll. And even in the last week, we saw the impact of the money coming in already. The MTA chairman just announced that they bought 265 new clean buses thanks to the money coming in from congestion pricing. And at the same time, some bus drivers are saying that they actually see an impact in bus routes running smoother and faster because of the changes. So long story short, all of the things that the program set out to accomplish may in fact happen. I'll wait to see once we get the data, but one thing I think is pretty clear is that there is going to be a lot of new money flowing into the city and in turn public transportation because of congestion pricing.